Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 257. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. I'm joined today by Tim Taylor, owner of TaylorWorks Business IT, and also the author of How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company Without Losing Your Shirt. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Great to have you on the show, and we've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, you not only are doing a IT business, but you also wrote a book about it. So we're definitely going to hear about that. But before we get started with that, why don't you go ahead and tell a background story of where you got started and how you got to this point?
Okay, great. Well, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and I started using computers back when you couldn't buy one yourself. You had to use the ones at the university. I never touched a computer in my life till I was a sophomore in college. And suddenly I was a business major. You had to take a computer programming class. I went in there just like everybody else and took it. And suddenly my whole world just opened up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. I mean, I loved programming. It's just the logic of it, because people are illogical. Computers are logical. They do what you ask them to do, and that's all they do. But I love that logic. And I took a programming class, and the teacher gave an extra credit problem for the whole class. Now, again, I was a sophomore in college. There were no cell phones back then. There was no fax machines. There was no texting. There was no email. When you had to talk to somebody, you called them on the phone. If you lost their phone number, you may never see them again. It's true. So I took the extra credit problem, and I went over to University Computer Center at 8 o'clock in the morning when it opened, and I left at 2 o'clock in the morning when it closed. And I don't remember going to eat. I don't remember going to the bathroom. I don't remember doing anything but focusing on that program. And I got it right. And I was the only person in 3 of the professor's classes that actually got that problem right. And so I just knew then that I was mesmerized by computers. I loved the way they thought and the way they worked. And graduated from college, moved to California, went to work for a large nonprofit out there. I came in as a mainframe programmer because the PCs were just being invented. I knew a little bit about them. Somebody wanted a PC in their office, so I set it up for them. I was part of this large computer services department, had about 50 people, but I became the microcomputer guy. Somebody else wanted one. Somebody else wanted one. Within 2 years, I had installed over 150 machines. There were no networks back then. If you had a problem, I had to walk right to your desk to help you. And there was no voicemail. My phone would literally just ring off the hook back at my desk. And finally, somebody would answer the phone for me and write down all the problems on those little pink Post-it notes and put it up on a bulletin board behind my desk. So I just came up, took the next one. All right, here, got to go up so-and-so. The place I was working was in 16 different buildings spread over 7.5 miles. So it was just a nightmare. We started building Novell networks in the late 80s and built the network up to about 600 machines. And then we moved the headquarters to Florida. I was in charge of moving that whole thing. It was quite an undertaking. But by 1990, we had downsized off of our mainframe and started running everything on a PC platform. And this was a large organization. At that time, we had 7, 8, 900 machines. No formal training. I just did it. I was with that organization until 97. And then in 1998, late 97, I left and started working for a small microcomputer company, just, a networking company, managed services firm. But nobody was doing managed services back then. And I suddenly realized it was me and the owner. I realized he gave me a desk and a phone and kept about 90% of what I brought in. And he constantly told me I did a bad job. So I was like, you know what? I can do this myself. So in March of 99, I went out there on my own. And I would do anything. I'd do home computers, business computers. But I realized pretty early on that businesses is where I wanted to be. I like the home computer market, but you have to have a retail store if you're going to do that. You want people to bring you the machine so you can work on it. Working inside of people's homes, I just don't like doing that. So I started out of the trunk of my car in 1999 by myself, and I looked for a book on how to start and run a successful IT company, and I couldn't find it. I mean, I looked everywhere. I finally found a book on starting a computer store, and that was about all that was out there. So we had converted to doing managed services by this time, and around 2010, I was in a leads group with some people, and I sat down with this guy, and I go, what do you do? And he goes, I help people write books. And I said, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do this. So we just got together every Friday for about 8 weeks for breakfast, and he just recorded everything I said. I just talked constantly about this is what you have to know, and you have to know this, and you have to know that, and you have to know this. And he kind of got it into a framework of a few chapters. And then I let it languish for like a year. And finally, I got back on it and got it finished in 2015. And now it's on Amazon and podcast and or Amazon and Kindle download. And it's how to start and run a successful IT company. And this literally will help someone who's just thinking about doing it. So this is what it's really like, guys. This is what it's really, really like to do this. This is the kind of commitment you have to make, but it's not impossible. You can do it because I did it. Today I have 15 employees and we're maintaining over 1,500 computers for our customers here in Central Florida. So that's kind of my backstory.
Nice. A very good backstory. Now, would you say that because a lot of times people would look at you started off programming and then you went into IT business support.
Right, right.
And a lot of people would look at that as like two way different things. So how do you put those two together as far as your interest from going from one to the next?
That's a very good question. I loved programming. I just really loved it. I loved the solitude of it. You could just focus on an issue and just work it and work it and work it until you got it right. But Windows came out in '95 and early 90s it came out. And the version everybody remembers is Windows 95, obviously. But I never made the jump over to Windows programming. Mine was literally the old-fashioned kind, all character-based, and you could write some incredible things, but it just wasn't there. And then where I was working, they needed me to set up a machine. So I said, all right, I'm doing programming, but I'll go set that one up. So I come back to my desk and start programming, and then the phone will ring. Oh, I can't print. Oh, I can't do this. And so it quickly evolved into a full-time tech position, which I didn't like it at first. I said, well, let me program half the day, and then the other half the day I'll be a network guy. That didn't work, because when you're doing something as a programming thing and you break away, it can take you an hour to get back where you were, So I had to sadly give up my programming career, but the networks were just expanding and growing like crazy, and it was a wild ride. We just jumped on, and I'd always tell my employees, just jump on and hang on. Here we go.
So you're definitely proof positive that you can go from something that a lot of people look at as so different and actually make it work for yourself.
Correct. You can do it. I mean, if you're intelligent, obviously computer people are all intelligent, and you see a need, plus I was being asked to do it. And the networking wasn't nearly as complicated as some of the programs I was writing. It really wasn't. But I did do this at home. I actually wrote 2 different programs. A friend of mine contacted me, and this was back when I wasn't programming at all for work anymore. And he said, I go to trade shows. I'd love to be able to write an invoice on my computer. This is before QuickBooks was invented. And he actually sent me his parts list, and I actually wrote a little program where you could actually type in a part number or throw up the price, and you put in the quantity, and it created an invoice. That sounds so tiny today, but this was over 1,000-line program. I wrote it in before Visual Basic. There was a thing called Quick Basic, and you could compile it into an EXE onto a PC. And so I wrote the whole program for him, and it was a big hit. And we were going to market it, but we just, it never quite got to it. And I wrote a testing program too. It was like writing quizzes for yourself. When you study for something, you get all here's the 50 things I need to know. Here's the question. Here's the answer. You key those into the computer, and then it would randomly ask you the question, and you type in the answer. And if it tell you if you're right or wrong, and you could store then all the ones that you missed and re-quiz yourself on those. And so I was going to market that too, but this was the days before the internet. The way you advertise programs was go in the back of Byte magazine or something, and put an ad. And I just, kids were coming. I had 2 kids by then, and another, a whole networking career, and I just had to let it go by the wayside. But I loved it. It was fun.
That's, what you can tell the passion in your voice and the fun you had doing that stuff. And it sounds like you like to create things, which goes in line with how you built your business. Correct. And also going into writing a book. Obviously, you have the passion for it. And would you say that is probably something that people need in order to do anything pretty much in life?
You have to have a passion. If you're not passionate about what you do something else. I'm serious. Money is not the most important thing in the world. You can make all the money in the world and be incredibly unhappy because you every day you've got to get up and you've got to go to work and you've got to do something that is important to yourself. You spend so much of your life at work. You have to do something that you're passionate about. And my passion was, developing a business, making money. I don't even like to go on vacation because I'm spending money instead of making money. I mean, it's just My grandfather died at 93, and the man was productive until the last day of his life, practically, So the creative side of me, though, allowed me to write the book, okay? But in my business, in the early days of my business, it was the early days of the internet and websites. There was a time when I had 5 web designers on my staff. So we did a lot of web design as well as networking, and we would just do everything for a small business. Our slogan back then was everything IT. If you needed it, we did it for you. We got your, we hooked up your only thing. I said, the only thing I can't do for you is run your internet connection to the building, but I'll figure out which one to get. I will set up your firewall, your network. We'll write your website for you. We'll do custom programming for you. Back then I hosted email for people. We did everything. Well, the custom programming and the web design, we've spun off since then. I don't have any web designers anymore for me because the problem was I'd have this good networking client that's paying me good money, but he didn't like his website. And I was in charge of the website. And websites are a little bit of an esoteric thing. When it comes to a computer, did that print? Yeah, here's the printout. When it comes to website, you might like it, but your vice president hates it. And so you had tension about something creative. And I didn't want that to mess up my other parts of my business. So we got out of the web design business. And there are some IT companies that actually have a web design division. They even call it a different name. And then they have a network division. So the creative part comes into there's always new things coming out. When I started this business in 99, my main big client was a big law firm, and the head lawyer had an AOL dial-up modem in his computer. That was the extent of their communication to the outside world.
Right.
So the world has changed dramatically, and just keeping up with all the new things is, you have to be somewhat creative to do that.
I know one of the things you say in your book is that, there's never a better time to start than now, because obviously we've heard something here in the last few years where people are saying that IT is dead, which I totally disagree with, and everybody knows where I stand on that. And I noticed in your book, you also said the same thing. Hey, now is the time to start.
Absolutely. I didn't even start my business till I was 40 years old. I was 40 years old. Wanted to leave where I was working. It was a nonprofit, very low salaries. And I said, all right, I need 1 month worth of income, and I think I can make it. I had a couple of clients I knew would work with me. Called my best friend back in Memphis. I said, look, and he owned an IT company. When I taught him everything he knew, and he owned an IT company. And I said, all right, by God, it's my turn. So I called him up and I said, look, I need $5,000. If you can loan me $5,000, I will pay you back. He says, you can pay me back within a year, and don't worry about it. I paid him back in 6 months. Okay. And so also the first big check I ever got, I paid for my oldest son's college tuition, just like that. I just put it in the bank and said, they have this thing called Florida prepaid here. I paid for his tuition. Then my other 2 kids, I started a payment plan to pay off their tuition, because I had to pay my own way through college and pay all my tuition, my books, and my car insurance, everything. And it was so hard on me. I just didn't want my kids to go through that. Some people don't agree with that, but that was just the one thing I was not going to put my kids through. So yes, it's a great time to do it. I mean, you've got to have something lined up. You've got to have a client in mind, and don't steal a client from where you work now. Okay, don't do that, because you can get in a lot of trouble doing that, and it's just never a good way to start a business. But get some business lined up and have belief in yourself. I mean, if you can do this work, then you can do it. The hardest thing for technical people is selling. That is the number one hardest thing, and we can start a whole conversation about that when you're ready. But I can teach people how to do that. It's not rocket science, I can tell you.
One of the things, so full disclosure, I did buy your book, and I did read it before we came on the call here. Matter of fact, I finished it at 10:48 this morning. And it was a great, insightful book. And people that know me know I don't say it unless it's true. So, or it's what I believe. And this book was so simple and to the point, and had so many great nuggets. And I will tell you, just the part on sales is well worth the price of admission to this book. So I will just tell people out there, if you are curious on how to sell something in managed services in the IT business, you lay it out really simply where people could basically almost copy and paste what's in there and actually come up with a formula that will work for them when they're talking to their prospective clients.
Well, that's why the way I tried to write it, because and remember, in 99, when I started this, there wasn't any such thing as what's called managed service today. The difference between break fix and managed services is break fix You go out and you do the work and you give them a bill for the number of hours you worked on. With managed services, you have an office with 20 computers. You charge them a flat rate per PC, and you give them basically unlimited support. So that's the essence of managed services. So the kind of tricky part, but it's fun too, is going in and convincing a business to sign up with your managed service plan. And that's the main thing I tried to get through in the book. Yes, they're like, wait a minute, I'm not paying this much today. But yes, you're going to get many more services, But here's the secret to selling. If you believe in yourself and you believe in what you do and you believe that you're good at it, people pick up your passion. You can stumble on everything. You can say it wrong. You can have a bad contract, but they watch you work. If you say, look, let me do a small project for you. Let me fix this. And then let me talk to you about my maintenance plan. You can call it a maintenance plan. You can call it managed services. But they're watching how you work. And their friends have told them, hey, this is a good guy. He's good at what he does. And undercharge them if you have to at the beginning. I mean, literally do more work, put in 8 hours and charge them for 6. The big fear people have is you're going to charge them for something that you didn't do, or you're going to overcharge them. Just be the honest guy. I'll tell you one story of how I got a major client. This company heard about us and they gave us a call, and I went out there. And the guy met me at the front door. Okay, this is a story about honesty. Okay, the guy met me at the door, and he said, "Let's walk around to the server room. It's right around the corner." I had no idea how big this business was. All I saw was the lobby. He walked me right around the corner from the lobby into the server room. Okay, I walk in. There's an entire rack of servers. There were 15. No, there were 7 servers in the rack. 7 servers. And I said, "Well, what are you doing on here?" And he says, "Well, this one does this. And then this one does that." And as he was describing them, every server did exactly one thing. And I was like, why do you have so many servers? And he had one laying on the floor against the rack. And I said, what does that one do? He goes, oh, it runs our security system in the building that we put in ourselves. And I said, it just runs one little tiny program. You could run that on a PC. He goes, yeah, but my computer guy said I need another server. And I go, how many employees do you have? He goes, 15. I said, you have 15 employees and you have 7 servers? I said, I could do everything you have here with 1 server and a backup. This was in the days of small business server, which you could put everything on 1 server easily, including Exchange and everything else. And so that's what I quoted him. I was honest with the guy. And I was the 3rd IT company that had come in there. Guess what everybody else quoted him? 7 new servers, because they were all old and they needed to be replaced. I was honest with him, okay? So guess who he went with? And he grew from 15 employees to 50 over the next 3 or 4 years. And guess who sold him all of his PCs and did managed service for him for years? The guy who was honest with him. Show passion and honesty, and you can sell anything. Okay? Passion and honesty. You do not have to be a sales personality. People look at me and go, oh, yeah, you know how to talk and blah, blah, blah. In my heart, I'm a technician. I'm as happy as anything to be put in a back room and write programs or set up servers and not talk to anybody all day. I've done this because I've had to do it, and I run a business, so I mainly manage my people today. But you can sell, and I give you some really clear steps in there how the selling process should go to sell IT services, especially managed services.
The other thing that I like about that too is that you said it yourself, you're a technician at heart.
Yes.
And from just reading your book, what I understand is that if you have something, maybe an employee that's working with a client, and that employee goes on and does something else, you'll step in and you'll do some things for that client so that they feel comfortable. So you're one of those rare people, in my opinion, in managed services that will actually step in and do the technician stuff, which a lot of us love. So we really don't want to leave it. But sometimes in order to grow your business, you've got to do less of that and more of the management side.
Exactly. I tell my prospective customers, I said, listen, when you have an issue, I've got, of my 15 people, I've got, 8, 9, 10 of them are technicians. I said, I'm a technician too. I said, if everybody's tied up and you got emergency at midnight, I will come out myself. I actually had a client test that. He's a physician. He went to work on Labor Day. On Labor Day, he was in his office by himself. Okay. He calls me, my computer's not working. I realized about half the building wasn't working, talked to him over the phone. He'd been hit by lightning, which is very common here in Florida, took out one of his switches, okay? And I said to him, I said, Doctor, I won't say his last name, you're really working on Labor Day? He goes, yes, I'm in here. I said, all right, I'm not making one of my employees do this. I drove down to my office, extracted a switch, and I drove it to his office and I put it in on Labor Day. Okay. So I make a big commitment to my clients, but yes, I will step in there. And the great thing about selling, this is why technicians can sell. This is why you can sell, because you look them in the eye and you're not saying theory, something you've read about. You're saying, this works. I've done it. Okay. I know how to do this. I'm telling you, you don't need a $10,000 server. You need a $4,000 server. You don't need these super expensive managed switches. You need simple smart switches because you only have 20 computers in here. You don't need, 3 internet connections. You don't need a 100 gigabit fiber connection when you have 15 employees and you're not creating graphics on the web. I mean, those are the honest things you tell people, but just look them in the eye and be honest with them. And people see honesty. That's why technicians can sell, because you will be honest with people. You will tell them the truth, and they'll respond to that.
Absolutely. And I think we in life, we do sell all the time. A lot of times we
Yes,
just don't look at it as selling, because what you've said is, if you have a passion and a knowledge for something, you're
right,
able to give that over to the person that you're trying to convince to do something, whether it's, hey, let's go to the beach, or,
right,
hey, marry me, or whatever. One
right.
of those
And
types of things.
you don't sell the product. You sell the experience.
Right.
You say, oh, wouldn't you like to get out here and get some sun, and there's some cute girls walking by, and let's get out on the beach. And you don't sell, oh, I got to get all sandy and dirty, and then it's going to be hot. You talk about the value, and that's what I talk to people about in selling managed services. I say, listen, in the old days of break fix work, I actually made more money the more problems that you had. I didn't necessarily want you to have the problems, but I actually made more money because I billed you by the hour. With our managed service plans, I make more money the less problems that you have. So what do you think I'm motivated for? I'm motivated for your network to work just like you are. And that turns a lot of lights on when you say that. I'm telling you, this is a better plan for you, and you're you're our highest priority client because you're on a contract with us, and we're under contract to keep your network up and running. So we do a lot of proactive maintenance to make sure it's always up and running.
And I think, if, as far as availability on that standpoint, a lot of people look at that and they go, it's like anything else that we do. Insurance. Everybody has insurance for different things in their lives. And this is basically a way to ensure that you're going to be up and running most of the time.
That's correct. That's correct. And you tell them, look, you're going to have issues sometimes after hours or whatever, but we have an answering service that answers the phone after hours. We just send it to us when we leave the office, and they actually put the ticket into our system. We have a PSA tool. They put the ticket into our system, and then they text me and my general manager. Okay, so we get a text message that says, okay, so and so, email doesn't work, blah blah blah. Usually the calls come in right after work because they were working with somebody and they told them to try this, it didn't work. So then I'll text one of my technicians. And of course, what do all technicians do when they get home? They eat and they sit down in front of a computer again. Okay. So I tell my guys, you're going to get paid overtime if you work overtime. So I'm one of the people that actually pays my technicians overtime. And I say, on a weekend when we have an emergency, I want them to fight and get to see who goes. Not like I ain't going. So if they work more than 40 hours a week, which is the law, I pay them overtime. Where a lot of IT companies I meet, they pay the guy's salary, and they try getting them to work on a holiday or a weekend when you pay them
Right.
salary. You have to threaten them to be fired if they don't do it. And I don't want my employees to work like that. So you have to have that commitment to your customers and do that proactive maintenance, and then they don't have a lot of problems. Do things that keep you from having to go in there all the time. And if you have a piece of equipment that's always messing up and always dying or whatever, and the guy won't replace it, say, look, I'll sell you when it costs. Okay, let's just get this replaced, because you're stopping all those phone calls coming in about that issue if you just get it taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to have those things in place where they can do whatever it is they do. They're selling widgets or doing whatever, and you're
Right,
basically sitting back and going, okay, everything's running good. When it's running
right.
good, you're doing less work. And then the
Yes,
the occasions where things break down, you've got to jump in and do whatever. But to me, that is
right.
a better way to go. Obviously, and I'm with you as far as the monetary on the break fix versus the managed services. Yeah, you could charge, so many hours a week, but the problem is you run out of hours to be able to
Yes,
charge for, and then you've got to
right.
either hire or whatever and make sure that business keeps flowing. So
Well,
the
you have no
managed,
passive income.
right,
That's the thing. There's no passive income when you're billing by the hour. If you get sick or you go on vacation, you're a one-man band, guess what? Your income stops. You should bill them. We use a thing called a remote management and monitoring tool on all the PCs that we have out there in the field. And you can do this even if you have a home computer business. Put an RMM tool on everyone's machine that notifies you of problems. This hard drive's getting full. This hard drive is failing. The antivirus quit working. It sends you a text or an email or whatever, or your ticketing system. It automatically goes into our ticketing system that says this machine over here is having an issue, and charge them monthly for that tool on their computer. I know a guy here in Orlando, my area, that he only does home computers and small businesses, but he charges them between $25 and $50 a month just to be on his system. But he guarantees them quick response time, and he's monitoring their computer, and includes antivirus with that. Okay? And you can even, for a few dollars more, you can include backup. Use something like Carbonite or something like that. Use one that you can private label, and when they get CryptoLocker or something, then you can restore their data and you can be a hero. Okay? The guy goes, well, I've got an external hard drive plugged in. Well, when you get CryptoLocker, that's the first thing it goes for, is that external hard drive, wipes out your backup. So charge them that monthly recurring revenue service. You can turn around and you could have 100 people on contract with you. You have great passive income coming in that keeps you through those lean times, and then bill them by the hour when you see them. Maybe do first 30 minutes of a remote call are free if you're in our managed plan. Okay, but if I have to come on site, or if it goes beyond 30 minutes, then I have to charge you. But you've got that income coming in, and people don't mind paying for people will pay for peace of mind. They know that you're looking at their computer. So if you want to focus on a home business, it's the same kind of thing. In businesses, we charge a little more, but we do more for them, but you can do the same thing in a home business.
And that's what I like what you said too in the book. One of the things you had talked about is having, as far as your managed services, having two different plans.
Right.
You've got basically a cheaper plan and a more expensive plan, and I'll let you explain what those are.
Sure. We have a full managed service plan where we never pay hourly. I mean, it takes an act of God for us to bill somebody by the hour when they're on our full managed services. We do everything for them. Okay. Now, we don't do websites. We don't do custom programming. But if they have a major software package that runs on their network that needs an upgrade, and one of my guys has to come in maybe after hours one night and do it, I'm not going to charge them for 3 or 4 hours. What makes business managers so upset, business owners so upset, they go, look, I'm paying you $3,000 a month. Why did you bill me over here for $200? Well, we had to install something new. What? You're my IT. What are you doing that for? So the full managed services, you charge more for that plan, but you do everything for them. You even eat a few hours here and there, okay? Because you don't want to be that blip on the radar. You want to just everything goes smoothly, okay? Or that's our full managed service plan, or we have a plan called remote care. Now, it's typically for smaller clients that don't want to pay for full managed services, but we put our RMM tool on the machine. Like I was describing earlier, we charge them about half as much per month, but when they call us or we come out, the first 15 to 30 minutes over the phone are free, but if we come out there, the meter turns on. Okay, but they pay a little less than just the basic rate, which we don't really even do that. I mean, so you say, what do you charge per hour? Well, I charge this per hour, but we don't really work on one-off things. If somebody called me up and said, hey, could you come over and fix my computer? I said, no. We have a managed service plan. To some level, you have to get into our plan. Okay, now I can come over and prove to you we can do it, but there has to be a very high likelihood that you're going to sign up with one of our plans before I'll send one of my guys over there. Okay, if it's a large enough business and it's a big enough potential, then I will do a one-off project with the hope of getting their full managed plan. Okay, but yeah, it's good to have two plans. The full managed services, we call the other one remote care, and it's a smaller companies that just are used to not paying anything. You know what I mean? Cousin Larry's always been setting it up for me, or they just run down to Best Buy and pick up a machine and plug it in, and then now that they have 15 machines and they need a server or cloud server or whatever, they suddenly realize they have to have IT, but they've never paid anything for it. Those are the hardest people to get on a managed service plan, but that's why we have the other one. It's kind of a starter plan, or if they're just really small. We don't typically take on anybody that has less than 10 computers. Okay, that's just our business model, because if they have less than 10, they've done it themselves, they paid nothing for it, and they don't believe they should pay anything for it. So we just say, sorry, unless they have a server, and we could build a cloud server or in-house. Doesn't matter, either one.
Now, would you say, there's a lot of companies that I would say are in your position where they are 10 and above as far as the
Mm-hmm.
amount of computers. Would
Mm-hmm.
you say there's a lot of smaller businesses out there that still need IT support if
Tons,
somebody can be that
tons.
go-to person?
Absolutely. There are more of them than there are of the bigger businesses. I'm telling you. I mean, a few years ago, Dell used to define a big business as more than 400 machines. Well, I would consider that a really big business, but in our perspective. But yes, there's still a big market for that 10 and under. They still need an IT guy. Now, if you want to be that break fix guy that's on the phone, you can make a lot of money if you're smart and you're organized. Okay, but you cannot make any passive income. Okay. The other problem you run into is that you're across town helping somebody, and then somebody over here has that you've been servicing has an issue, and you can't get there. That's when they call us. This is why you need to eventually become a little more professional company, and that's where I had to grow to. I started out by myself. I had a pager when I first started, 1999. Remember, I had a pager, and you would put they would type my pager number and would go off my pager, and if I said if it's a real emergency, put 911 at the end. Okay. And then I would call them right back. Okay. That's how we did it. But the thing is, I started growing. So then I hired a lady that worked out of her home. She didn't have small children at home. She didn't have a dog, but he didn't bark much. And she answered the phone for us. Okay, so here's our number. Call this number. And she answered the phone. She ordered equipment. She did our billing. She did everything. And I actually grew up to about 9 employees before we moved out of that model into an actual office. Okay, all my technicians were in the field every day. Some of my technicians were billing 50 hours a week. Now I was paying them overtime, but 50 hours a week at 100 and something an hour times 8, add that up. Okay, that really is some good money. That was before we started doing managed services. We were very profitable then, but you don't have any passive income. And what customers don't like is when they get a huge bill from you. Okay, I remember this one church I was doing one time. They had so many needs and they were big, and I gave them a bill one month. It was $9,000 for 1 month of work. Okay, and there was some equipment in there, but I mean, it was just like, and they said, this is just getting too much. And I said, look, let me charge you a flat rate per month. That was my first managed service client. They had about 50 machines. I charged them, now prices changed. I charged them $100 a machine. And so it was $5,000 a month. And I said, I'll just do everything for you. Everything for you. If you have an issue, I will be here. And it was just me and 2 other employees at that time. But that was my first full managed service client. But I didn't have all the tools we have today. I mean, they had an internet connection, but I couldn't just remote into their machine so easily and fix it and help them. And, didn't have automatic reporting tools and stuff. So when we started growing and have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of machines, you've got to have those tools. So, but there's still a place for that small guy out there. And that's a great way to start. Bill by the hour for a while, have those small clients. But I have found that the less people pay me, the more they're a pain, the more they complain.
I think
So
that's true. Yes.
be selective. Be selective. Let me tell you.
No,
My mother gets help for free, and she calls me all the time. It drives me crazy.
there you go.
So anyway, yeah.
And I think there's basically 3 types of businesses out there. There's businesses that deal only with residential. They don't want anything to do with business because there are certain things that come along with that, certain responsibilities.
Yep.
Then there's the people that are in your position that are business only, and you're going to do my, managed services or nothing.
Right.
And a lot of people are doing that. And then you've got kind of people in the middle that are doing more of a hybrid approach. They're doing maybe 50-50 or 60-40 between the residential and the business side.
Yeah, and a few people I know, like there's a friend of mine, friend I mentioned in Memphis that has an IT company. What he did was he hired one employee that just does home computers. Okay, he said, if you call, all right, this is our home division. This guy will come out and do your work for you. He is, it may take him a day or 2 to get there, but that's what he does, and he focuses completely on home residential stuff. The guy had his own little small IT company. He hired him because he got tired of doing all his paperwork. Okay, so now he just gets paid by the hour to go out and do computer work, and that's how he does it. We've opted not to go that way. I have one client that has over 200 machines. Okay, I regularly have clients at 50, 60, 70, 80 machines, and so I just don't want to have any more. I don't want to have any distractions from small clients. And but if you have an employee, they can focus on that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the other thing I liked about the honesty, talking about honesty in your book, about the things you're talking about, the things that you could do by yourself. And then you were
Right.
talking about the things that you you basically need to hire people to do some of those niche type things inside the
Yes.
business in
Right.
order to make it worthwhile.
Yes. You do have to do that. Now, when I first started, my wife was my first administrator. Just had my third child, and so I would go out every day and do my work, and I would literally just write down on a piece of paper. I was so and so for 3 hours, and I would kind of write down what I did, and she would take my little paper at the end of the week, and she would type into QuickBooks all our invoices, and then we'd print them out over the weekend and mail them out. Okay, and I would order equipment. Literally, I would be ordering equipment. I was driving in between appointments. I eventually mounted. Don't do this, folks. I had mounted a laptop in my car with I got one of the first cellular modems you could get. It had a little antenna that stuck out, and it had a mount like a police car. It was mounted in the car, and I would get billable hours driving in between appointments. I literally would be working on someone's remoted in with, I think I used carbon copy, and I would remote into their machine while I was driving in between appointments. I remember once I had to drive about an hour and a half, and I can set up upgraded a whole software package on a server, and it had remote into about 10 workstations while I was driving this long drive and just typing away. And so my computer is no longer mounted in my car, but you can make good money doing that. It's just that there's no help. And we graduated from my wife doing it to I hired this lady that worked at one of our clients. She worked at a client that got new management. She felt like she was going to get laid off, and she liked me. She was my main person I dealt with in the office, and she said, "I want to come work for you." I said, "All right, you can work at home. You answer the phone, you order equipment, you help make appointments for me." And she was phenomenal. She was with me for many years. That should be your first employee, not a technician. That should be your first employee. Now, you probably will hire a technician first because you're so busy you can't get to the work, but then you have to realize that you're now generating twice the paperwork, okay? Because it's not just your paperwork for your hours, it's your technician's paperwork. So unless you're willing to work late at night every day and lots of time on the weekends, the second person I hired was her. I hired one technician part-time, and then I hired her, okay? Because I was about to blow my brains out. I couldn't get all the paperwork done. The paperwork for a technician is what will kill you, okay? That is what you've got to hire somebody for because you hate it. You love the technical work, but if you don't bill people on time or whatever, you look unprofessional. I don't care how good you are technically. If you look unprofessional, they're not going to keep you long term. They will hire a larger company.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think a lot of people out there do hire technicians prematurely.
Yes.
Before they, one of the rules of thumb that I've always said is that you need to be so busy that you can't see straight anymore. Then it's time to hire. But
yep.
I'm with you. As far as getting an administrator, I think that's not only is it easier from the standpoint of being able to train somebody to be an administrator, but if you're having to teach somebody the technical side, man, that can be tough.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many people. It is so great today that how you can work at home because there are so many, mothers out there with kids in school, and then she could say, look, I'm available from, 8 in the morning when my kids go off to school till 3 in the afternoon when they come home. And you say, fine, I'll answer the phone from 3 to 5, whatever, just forward it back to me. And with cell phones and fax machines, which people don't hardly ever use anymore, but I mean, with cell phones and computers at home, give them a computer, pay for their internet connection. Say, here, I'll pay you X amount per hour. You answer the phone for me. I'll call you and say, order this equipment for me, order this, order that. I mean, she was doing everything. I mean, she was doing the payroll. She was ordering all the equipment. She was writing proposals for me. I taught her how to do all these things, but she was an intelligent person and she loved it. She even added on a room to her house, which she was thinking about doing anyway, but she made it her office and it was to work for me. And she worked for me for years, and she only left because she wanted to make a lot more money. Her husband lost his job and I couldn't pay her more than, what I was paying her. And, we were about to open our first office. So her best friend who used to come over one day a week and help her do the billing, I hired her, and so she came to work for me. So, employees, you shouldn't be scared of employees. There are plenty of moms out there that want to contribute. They don't want a full-time job. They don't want to leave the house or dads at home. I mean, either one. I'm not trying to be sexist, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there that would love to work from home and answering the phone and ordering equipment. They never have to leave the house. And they can be in constant communication with you out in the field doing your work. And that's what I did for years. And it was very profitable. I mean, I did in 99, started out, by 2006, we were doing over $1 million a year in business, in revenue.
Wow.
And that wasn't profit, but we were doing 20% profit on $1 million in sales by 2006.
Very nice.
So, yeah. So
the other thing I like
there's plenty of work out there.
Oh yeah. And the other thing I like too is that you talked about the companies or clients that you have, them necessarily they're not going to be your client forever, which I also thought was a refreshing idea. Of a lot of people have this mentality of hold on to everything they have, and they'll bend over backwards instead of making decisions that are good for their business long term.
There's an old axiom in business that says all contracts end, and they do. They absolutely do. I mean, I've had clients. One of the things I learned early on in my business is do not get emotionally attached to a client. Okay, just do not do it. Don't go out to lunch with them all the time. Don't go hunting with them. Don't be their best buddy. Because, man, if they drop you, it is like divorce. I mean, it hurts. Now, I've never been divorced, but I mean, it hurts. I broke up with girlfriends, though, in college. But I've been married 34 years to the same woman. But the thing is that it just hurts too bad. It really, really hurts. Um, so don't get emotionally connected to clients. Don't get emotionally connected to employees either. Okay? Because if people come and go, especially in today's world, you look at these 20-somethings resumes, every year it's a new job. Every year. Okay? One of the things I mentioned in the book is strongly recommend you get a very good non-solicitation, non-compete agreement. You cannot stop someone from working in your industry. If you have an employee that leaves and wants to start his own business, you can't stop him from working in the IT business, okay? But in most states, you can stop. They can sign a contract with you. They will not solicit your customers or employees after they leave for a period of time. You have to make it geographical. Have a lawyer look at it. Geographical in scope, maybe within 50 miles of your office, and for 2 years. Okay, that's usually a reasonable request. Okay, so but yeah, I mean the employees, you have to hire them, and if you're going to grow, but if you don't do it, then you will always stay small, and you will see things slipping away. And just don't count on a client lasting forever. I mean, they just don't. They get bought out. I had a huge client in Daytona Beach, which is just like 45 minutes north of here. They had 225 machines. I actually ended up having 2 guys on site there all day, every day, because their needs were so great. Then they were bought out by another company, and they were bought out by another company, and they just started shutting down all the operations. So, I brought those 2 guys back into my office, melded them into everything else we were doing, and but that was a big chunk of business, that we lost. I saw it coming, but you never know what could happen tomorrow. That's why I focus so much on sales. I agree. I do have a salesman's personality. I'm very strange. I can program in the back room by myself, or I can go out and sell. And I can be just as happy doing both things. I don't know why, but I can. Okay. Maybe I'm just a happy person. I don't know. But, and my wife wouldn't say that all the time. But anyway, I do laugh a lot, though. But the thing is, I focus all my energies today on sales. I mean, obviously I have to run my company, but with 15 employees, I hired a general manager. Guess who that general manager is? Remember the customer I told you that had 7 servers and had 15 employees? It's that guy. He actually came to work for me years later. Okay, the company reorganized. He left. They gave him a 6-month severance, and he said he came into my front door and said, "I really want to work here, and you don't have to pay me for 6 months. I will learn your business because I'm getting a severance where I'm at." And I said, "Man, get in here. I need a general manager like nobody's business," because I was trying to do both things. And now I spend probably 60 to 75% of my time in the field selling. You have to sell. Okay, if you're not outgoing, whatever, talk to your current clients that really like you. Okay, they all do, or they wouldn't be paying you. Go to them and say, "Look, man, I'm really trying to grow my business a little bit. Who's a couple of people that you work with that are about the size of your company? Good friends of yours that you could get a warm introduction for me." Just send them an email and say, "Hey, here's my IT guy. He'd love to meet you." Even if you don't have a need right now, here's a great way to get in the door. Even if you don't have a need right now, I'd love to just come by and meet you. Okay? That's a great way to get somebody on the phone and get them just meet you for 5 minutes. And you never know. Tomorrow, their IT guy could leave the state or get hit by a truck, or they don't like him anymore. And suddenly they're going to call you. "Who was that guy that came by here 6 months ago and he said he just wanted to meet me?" Leave him some good materials on your company. Get them a little drip campaign where you email them once a month, a newsletter. Okay? They start seeing your name and they remember your name. And when something comes up, you get that phone call. Okay? So, yeah, customers don't last forever. But if you're a smart businessman, you have to focus on sales. Either you or somebody that works for you has got to focus on sales, or you're not going to grow. I mean, we're up to, over $2 million a year in sales today. And it didn't happen by accident. And in 2010, I was maintaining 400 computers. Today, we're maintaining 1,500 computers. Okay, It doesn't happen by accident. You've got to focus on sales because you never know when somebody's going to leave.
Now, I do have a question as far as the amount or percentage of one client should have of your business, or in other words,
Mm-hmm.
of the clients out there,
Right.
you don't all, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket,
No,
but
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
is there like a certain percentage that you go by, or is it just kind
That's
of,
a good question. Well, I've never had a client that was more than 15% of our income.
Okay.
Okay. So now that wasn't necessarily by design. Okay. That's just the way it worked out.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be honest with you there. But as a small, it's harder with a small business. Now, remember how I said how much pain it is when somebody leaves you that's a friend? There's pain in two places, in your heart and in your wallet. Okay. Do not have 40% of your income be one client. Okay. Because when they leave, you're going to have a real problem. This is why it's actually good to hire some technicians when you can, because it's not you there. And so when you have to pull yourself out of that client to gather more clients or to help more clients, that customer gets upset because he's always had you as the owner. Okay. See, I focused really hard on not being the guy, at every one of my clients. Okay. Now, you have to really trust your technicians that are going out there in the field because they're representing your company. Okay. I have very different technicians. I mean, personality wise, they're all technicians, but personality wise, the guys that go in the field, my field techs versus my help desk guys. Okay. The help desk guys, they don't want to leave the building. They want to sit there and they want to answer the phone. They help people all day long. They're remoting in and helping people. But if they can't get it done remotely, we send one of the other guys on site. To me, you're one of your most important. All your employees are important, but the most I hire for personality. Okay. First of all, honesty and personality, because these technicians in the field, they are out there in front of people. They have to represent my company. One screw up, one, off color thing they say, one day they walk in there and they hadn't had a shower. I mean, that really reflects back on your company. I buy them shirts that have our logo on them. I'd say, look, just wear some khaki pants. Don't wear old ratty blue jeans. Wear some khaki pants or some nice, decent pants, except for Fridays, Blue Jean Friday. And always wear your work shirt. Okay, because plus people know who you are. You're representing the company. And when somebody different from Taylor Works comes in, they see the same shirt and they see the consistency. Okay, even when I first started my business, within 2 years of starting it, I had my own shirts. Okay, and I wore one every day. Myself as the owner, I wore one every day because I was a technician back then too. And my customers got used to that. And literally, one of my employees worked for me for 5 years before he saw me wear something that wasn't that shirt. Literally. Okay. So we had a Christmas party and I wore something else. And he said, I've never seen you not in one of our shirts. So have a uniform. A uniform is very important and it shows consistency. Yes. And your question was don't rely too much on one client. Always be selling and don't have more than 25% of your income with one client.
Okay.
Because if they left you for some reason, the tricky part is too, so when they start getting bigger, what you have to charge them starts getting closer to them hiring someone. And their big fear is that your fear as a technician is, they're going to hire somebody to do what I'm doing for them. Okay, that does happen, but this is where you have to bring the value. And you said, yes, you can hire a guy. This is a great selling point. I want to bring this up. When you're selling managed services, I tell people, I said, look, we might be a little more expensive than you hiring a guy in here if you're a decent sized company, but you can't just hire one guy. You got to hire two guys. Because what if that guy gets sick? What if he goes on vacation? What if he gets hit by a truck? Okay, when you hire two people, we're much cheaper. And now you're getting a team of 15 people helping you. You're not just getting one internal IT guy who's going to go on vacation, who's going to get sick. And that's a big selling point for our managed services is the team approach. They have a whole team of people that's helping them.
I think the other thing, and I'm just parsing this information from just talking to you and reading your book, I would imagine that you probably pay your employees very well, because this is something I see in the industry a lot.
Right.
We want to get something for nothing. And so therefore we don't give our employees enough money to stick around for the long haul.
Quality people have to eat. Now, technical people, those of you listening to this podcast are technical people, and I know in your heart you're going to agree with this. They're not motivated by money. Okay, they're motivated by the work. But guess who is motivated by money? Their wives, their kids. They have to eat.
That's right.
Technical people, if they get to do the work they like to do and they get the tools they need and the toys, if you get them a laptop, if they need it at home or whatever, if you give them that stuff, they will love you forever. Okay. But their wives need the money. They need to live in a house. They're going to have children. I have a 401k plan. I have health insurance. I actually pay for it for my client, for my employees. I pay 50% of it. Okay. I have a dental plan. I pay them pretty decently. Their hourly rate is good. And they get overtime. Almost every one of them has some overtime in every pay period. And I don't cry about it. Okay? We're not as super profitable. It's probably as if I put the screws on it. But how much do you lose when you lose a good technician who is at one of your best clients and that technician leaves and that client leaves you? That client could be paying you more than you pay that technician a month. Was that a smart move to be cheap with your technician? No, it wasn't. I've had one of my guys have been with me almost 10 years. Okay, I've been in business 18 years. He's been with me almost 10 years. Okay, so he was one of my first field techs way back when. And, people are going to come and they're going to go, but they should not leave over money reasons. You should pay them a decent wage, pay them for the things they need, and it comes back. I mean, or you're constantly going to be hiring people.
Right.
And that just is no fun. And it shows inconsistency to your clients, and that is a deal killer. They will drop you if they see inconsistency. If you send 3 different people there in 1 year, they're going to start looking around. They are, I'm telling you. So people are going to leave. Get used to it. That's going to happen, okay? People are going to leave. You're going to ask some people to leave. But, you do your best to keep good people, keep your core people happy. And, on the help desk, it's a little bit easier because they don't see them. But I just baby my field guys. I mean, one of them has a work vehicle. It has a wrap on it. It has our company name on there. And, if they need off, one of my guys is really into the local football team here, UCF. They just are 11-0 this year, which is amazing. He's really into them, and he is going to be there at those games no matter what. And so if there's an emergency over a weekend, it doesn't matter. He's going to be at that game. So we cover for him. You know what I mean? So employees are very important. Treat them right, and they'll stay with you.
That's the best advice I've heard in a long time, because there's a lot of people out there looking, and they can't find the right fit. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Money is one of them, and just not.
Well, you wouldn't believe the technicians that come and apply at our place. And they tell me about the other IT companies in town. One guy came in and said that they pay him a salary. They refuse to pay him overtime. They refuse to pay travel costs when he has to go somewhere. And he said, we have one of our clients, we're on a 10-minute SLA, and it's a 24-hour operation. He goes, I get called all the time at night, and I have to get out of bed, and I have to go help these people, on the phone. But I don't get paid anything extra for it. Why do you think he's working for me and not them?
Right.
It's no big rocket science, okay? I mean, and this guy just treats all his employees like that, never pays overtime. And, in my heart, I just can't treat people that way. And I would have more money if I put the screws to people. But would you really? I mean, you're not going to in the long run. You absolutely are not. You know what I mean? And good people are hard to find. I mean, there's lots of companies looking for technical people today. It's cybersecurity. Oh, my God. Security positions, they're going to be just non-existent, okay, they're finding new people. So you want to create an environment and create a place where people want to work.
I agree. Well, Tim, we've covered a lot of things that are in your book, and I would definitely encourage people as far as buying your book. Number one of my things is invest in yourself, and
Absolutely.
to purchase this book to get the information that you've put together. There's a lot of things we touched on, but you go into great detail, and not great detail to where you can't understand it, but great simple detail, which I think is good, so that people can understand and take that information. And you might have to sit down and read it a couple times, or you might have to take a portion of it and start implementing that in your business.
That's good. One of the things I did about the time I started writing it, I said, one of my passions is helping other people. And I said, you know what, I could put the book out there, but I'd also like to start a consulting service for guys that are trying to start their own IT company. So if you look on the back of the book, it has our website, but it's timtaylorconsulting.com. Okay, that's a separate website for my business, and I'm consulting with 3 guys right now. I've got a guy in Miami, a guy in Atlanta, and a guy in California that are just starting their IT companies. Okay, the guy in Atlanta has already got 100 machines under contract. Okay, when he came in my door, he knew absolutely nothing about how to do this. Okay, so I consult with him every couple of weeks. We're on the phone. He can call me anytime he wants, and I'm running my business at the same time. So everything I'm telling, I said, look, I'm doing this, but I've done what a lot of people want to do. So if you go to timtaylorconsulting.com, you can sign up there. I'll get in touch with you. First month is free. If I don't give you the right kind of advice to help you get your business going, because I realized when people are just starting, they don't have any income from customers yet. I'm helping them get started, so it's kind of hard to pay me for that service. But once you get rolling, I will help you. And I've grown a company from the trunk of my car to a multi-million-dollar company. So I know how to help you, and I've been in your shoes, and I have a passion for helping people. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And we would definitely have all those links in the show notes for this show so that you guys can get all that information. And we'll have a link for the book and everything else too. Is there any other last piece of advice that you want to give the listeners out there?
The biggest thing in those of you that are wanting to start your own company, the biggest thing is believe in yourself. I mean, if you believe in yourself, then, when I started my business, I knew how to do IT work. And I said, by God, if it just takes hard work, I can do this. If I know what needs to be done and I just put the work in, and, I did it. But don't let your personal relationship suffer. I was home every weekend, all my kids' ball games. I didn't miss any of them, but I would often work late during the week so that I made sure I had time on the weekends for the family. So, believe in yourself, and you can do it, man. It's not impossible.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming out. And like I said, we will have all the links in the show notes for this show and all the information that you've shared with us today.
Great, Jeff. Let's do it again.
Awesome. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.